many times punishment or discipline is not to teach the child how to not make that mistake again. It's don't do it because I said so. Not because we're bad parents, because we are in a state of crisis. We're trying to keep the lights on, and that's the way we were parented many times, and so that's what we pass on. So when we come into the school system, and schools expect the very linear process, to have learned a problem-solving process. So I can't get this, turned into you. How do I handle that? So how many of you, how would your parents have told you to handle that if you can't get something turned in on time? Pardon me? Yeah, talk to someone about it. Talk to the professor. Call. Okay, those are all things that would be met with what the woman had said, I can't do this, I need to get out of here. Because we are in a fight or flight mode through much of our life, and then when we come into a system such as education that doesn't operate on fight or flight, it operates on, this is the problem, let's talk about solution and options, and then let's come to, let's make a plan of action. It's a very non-emotional experience. Whereas our brains have learned many times, when you think about your memory, there's a couple different ways that we learn, and one is linear. And I think of it as being a muscle, that there's two muscles. There's linear and episodic. And linear in middle class gets exercised a lot because there's planning in that part. And also in the frontal lobe. There's executive functioning. You learn to plan. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. Oh, here's the syllabus. I'll look at what I need for next week. I'll actually plan ahead. So that part of the brain gets a really good workout. The other side of that is learning by episodes, learning by emotionally intense episodes. So the most powerful thing is what we remember. An example is a lot of the families that I work with come in contact with police officers. And when the family tells me what happened, and when I read the police report, it sounds like it's two completely different experiences. The family is telling me from the most emotionally intense part. They're telling me, so-and-so beat up so-and-so. The officer is writing it from that linear side. I arrived, I spoke to this person, first this happened, then this happened, then this happened. The big blow up, the emotionally intense part, doesn't get any more credibility. It's not bolded, it's not highlighted. It's A led to B, led to C, now we're at D. Well, when I'm getting the story from my clients, they've left out A, B, and C, and it was just D. Not because they're lying or because they're trying to pull one over necessarily. Probably sometimes that happens. But it's because this is how I learn. I've learned by what's emotionally intense. I'm going to give you the biggest, juiciest part. And all of those details fall away to the side. Okay, so when I'm teaching students, I do a lot of activity. I try to relate it to a lot of stories and have them apply it to their life. Because if it's just strictly lecture, read this, take this, quiz, read this, take this quiz, I lose a lot of them. And they have many crises in their life, and they need to be late or they need to miss a class. And so on my syllabus, my students have my cell phone. And it's my cell phone that I've had since 2003. And I'm pretty sure I'm not allowed to ever change my number. But I tell them, if something comes up, I want to know the night before if you're not going to be there. And I will work with you on it. But, so there's that, I really have to develop the relationship with my students to help them through and nurture them through. And as they're melting down, to do that coaching to help them change the tape in their head and say, okay, let's stop for a minute. This is what happened tonight. So your car broke down. You have no way to get there tomorrow. Okay, let's make a plan for your car. Okay, it can be done by Thursday. You can come to my office on Thursday. You can take your test in an exam room by yourself. It'll be okay. That's that linear problem-solving planning that takes the emotion completely out of it. But the important thing that's happening at that point in time is I'm building a relationship with that student. And I was available beyond my office hours, and that is interpreted as, oh, okay, then you're really there for me. This isn't just because it's on your job description. Verbal tools, vocabulary, grammar. Oh my gosh. One thing I was blessed with, my parents were just real sticklers with grammar, and my mom played classical music and musicals growing up, so we had lots of cognitive stimulation. They were really pushed reading on us. And as I got out into school, I would hear a lot of, the first time I ever heard someone say, well, I seen it, it was like, wow, you can't say that. It's I have seen or I saw. So helping people learn some of those things, because what happens is they may be very intelligent people, but because of their grammar, they come across as very unintelligent people because they have really poor grammar. And so, and using, different words, if they don't know what a word means, I encourage them to say, or I'll say a word, and then I'll say, who doesn't know what that means? Or let me tell you what that means and how you can use it. Because we assume they're going to look it up maybe, or Google it, and they may, but they may not. Spatial orientation for people from poverty. When we tell you how to get from here to there, and I've had people tell me this is also a male-female thing, we describe it in emotional terms. We describe it based on episodic memory, what we remember about that place. So I'm going to tell you to go down there, and it's not specific, it's general. You go down there for a little ways, and then you turn by that barn that burned down a couple years ago, and then you go out there where we used to party, and it's around, and it used to be so-and-so's house because it's based on relationships. So that's the way we're giving directions. I was in my 30s before I realized that north is always north, and that south is always south. I couldn't grasp that. Wouldn't east or west always be left or right? Not necessarily. That was a very linear way of thinking, and that part of my brain was completely atrophied. It had not been exercised at all. Okay, so that was, I'm hoping that you're kind of getting the drift or the idea that it's very heavily emotional, relationship, lots of crisis, lots of fight or flight, and that is survival mode of the day-to-day just to get through the day. Is that making sense? Okay. So sometimes when we're teaching students, yes?
Is there any research that shows because the linear part of the brain has not been massaged as much in relationship to mathematics, and why, if you have any information about community colleges, our students are doing poorly in math,
Mm-hmm.
and we also see that in our, as we look across the state test scores, you can see where the this for mathematics. Is there anybody that's done any study on that?
Well, there are direct correlations in many studies that show all of our standardized testing. The group that is consistently low or failing are the free and reduced student lunches, the low socioeconomic status.
Directly relationship to mathematics and the linear part.
Mm-hmm. I have not come across specific research, but I haven't really looked. But in my mind, yeah, math, the other piece is that math is, in poverty, you should know how to make change.